Welcome to Hockey Whiz Talks podcast. Today I'll be talking about the strengths and weaknesses of Western Conference playoff teams. In this podcast, I discuss the strengths and weaknesses of playoff teams in the Western Conference. As of right now, the Western Conference playoff teams include the Colorado Avalanche, Calgary Flames, Minnesota Wild, St. Louis Blues, Edmonton Oilers, LA Kings, Nashville Predators, and Dallas Stars. Strengths of Western Conference playoff teams. The strength of the Colorado Avalanche is their offensive firepower, team speed, and star power. The Avs have three legit superstars on their team in Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Cale Makar, as well as two star players in Gabriel Landeskog and Nazem Kadri. Colorado's success is based on their team speed, and it is the reason why they are so tough to play against, because they come at you with waves of speed. Not only are the forwards fast, but they also have defensemen like Cale Makar, Sam Girard, and Devon Toews, who can jump into the play and contribute offensively. Colorado has a potent offense. Not only do they have superstars that can score, they also have many versatile players in their lineup that can slide anywhere in the lineup. Because of how dominant Colorado is offensively, they will be a threat to win the Stanley Cup. The strengths of the Calgary Flames is their offense, offensive depth, and goaltending. Calgary is led offensively by three superstars in Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Tkachuk, and Elias Lindholm, who do the bulk of their scoring. The Flames also have great secondary scoring with Tyler Toffoli, Andrew Mangiapane, Blake Coleman, and Mikael Backlund. Calgary is significantly harder to play against now because they added players like Blake Coleman, Trevor Lewis, Kelly Yarncroc, and Milan Lucic, all of whom have tons of playoff experience and will help the team with their playoff experience. Jacob Markstrom has been the backbone of the Calgary Flames and has been excellent for the Flames all season long. Calgary will definitely be a threat to win the Stanley Cup. The strengths of the Minnesota Wild is their offensive depth, goaltending, and team physicality. Minnesota is led offensively by Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. Secondary scoring from Kevin Fiala, Matt Boldy, Frederick Gaudreau, Ryan Hartman, Joel Eriksson-Ek, and Marcus Foligno. Although the Wild aren't the most intimidating team on paper, they are a tough team to play against because they play a hard-nosed style of play. The Wild are anchored in goal by Marc-Andre Fleury and Cam Talbot. Fleury is likely to be the goalie they rely upon in the playoffs, but it's always nice to have a dependable backup like Cam Talbot on the roster. Minnesota is a dark horse to win the Stanley Cup this year. The strengths of the St. Louis Blues is their offensive depth, defensive depth, and playoff experience. St. Louis is led offensively by one of the hottest lines in the league in Robert Thomas, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Pavel Buchnevich. Ryan O'Reilly centers the second line with Brandon Saad and David Perron, and Braden Shen centers the third line with Ivan Barbashev and Jordan Kyrou. In addition to a balanced offense, St. Louis also has very good defensive depth after adding Nick Leddy at the trade deadline. This allows them to roll all three D pairs freely. The Blues still have many of the same core players left over from the Cup-winning team in 2019, and the additions of ex-Chicago Blackhawks Brandon Saad and Nick Leddy gives them plenty of playoff experience in the lineup. St. Louis Blues definitely could contend for a Stanley Cup this year. The strengths of the Edmonton Oilers is their dynamic duo, power play, and their offensive depth. Edmonton is led offensively by their dynamic duo, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who both have over 100 points again this season. The Oilers have the third best power play in the league and are really tough to defend against on the man advantage due to the weapons they have at their disposal on that top unit. Since the Oilers split up McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nugent Hopkins and put them all on separate lines, the Oilers have had much better success, and they are capable of rolling three strong offensive lines. With the star power on this team, they will be a threat in the playoffs. The strength of the LA Kings is their playoff experience, balanced offense, and offensive depth. The Kings still have a couple of players on their roster left over from their Stanley Cup teams: Anze Kopitar, Dustin Brown, and Jonathan Quick. Players such as Victor Arvidsson, Philip Deneau, Alex Edler, and Ole Mata all have plenty of playoff experience and should help the team in the playoffs. LA has a balanced offense and is capable of rolling all four lines. While none of their lines stand out tremendously, they are certainly capable of scoring. The line to look out for in the playoffs will be the third line with Alex Iafallo, Blake Lizotte, and Dustin Brown. This line could be the difference in the playoffs. While it will still be a stretch, LA could certainly be a dark horse to win the Cup this season. The strengths of the Nashville Predators is their offensive depth, defense, and goaltending. Nashville has four really good offensive lines led by Philip Forsberg, Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, and Mikael Granlund. Their most consistent line has been the Colton Sissons line, flanked by Tanner Jeannot on his left and Yakov Trenin on his right. This line does everything and has become their ideal checking line. Three young players to watch for are Luke Cunnin, Eli Tolvanen, and Philip Tomasino, all of whom had some sparks of brilliance this year. Not surprisingly, the Predators are led in scoring by their captain Roman Josi. Matthias Ekholm, Dante Fabro, and Alexander Carrier make up the rest of their top four. Juuse Saros has been a rock in net for Nashville and has proven he is one of the best goalies in the league. While Nashville may not be as good as some other teams, they could certainly upset a top seed in the playoffs. The strengths of the Dallas Stars is their balanced offense, offensive depth, and playoff experience. Dallas has four solid offensive lines led by Roope Hintz, Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, Tyler Seguin, and Jamie Benn. Players such as Alex Radulov, Denis Gurianov, and Radek Faksa will be relied upon for secondary scoring. Dallas has a balanced offense, can roll all four lines, and rely on three of their lines to score on a regular basis. Dallas still has many of the same players left on their roster from their 2019 Stanley Cup run. Ryan Suter's experience and leadership should help them out in the playoffs as well. If Dallas holds on for the final playoff spot, they have proven they can make a deep run from a low seed. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on anchor.fm/hockeywiz777scouting. Weaknesses of Western Conference playoff teams. The weakness of the Colorado Avalanche is their goaltending and playing against physical teams. Darcy Kemper is not a proven goalie in the playoffs, so that might be their Achilles heel. Also, the Avalanche are a bit small, so if they face a bigger and more physical team, they could be pushed around. The weaknesses of the Calgary Flames is their defense and postseason letdowns. The Flames do not have a true number one defenseman, nor do they have a legit shutdown pair. Calgary has had many postseason letdowns in the past, and that will dwell in the back of their minds until they prove doubters wrong this postseason. The weaknesses of the Minnesota Wild is their defense and lack of top-line center. Playing against the teams they will face in the playoffs, the Wild will need a number one center if they are to make a deep playoff run. Also, their defense is not that special, so it could be exploited when they play a better team. The weaknesses of the St. Louis Blues is their goaltending and inconsistent offense. The biggest problem with St. Louis is that they are a very streaky team. When they are hot offensively, they are very tough to beat. However, they aren't always consistent with their scoring. Goaltending is also a major problem. Neither Jordan Binnington nor Ville Husso have really solidified their claim to the crease. The weaknesses of the Edmonton Oilers is their defense and goaltending. The Oilers don't really have any elite defensemen and can be downright terrible defensively. While both Mike Smith and Mikko Koiskinen have played well in stretches, they are by no means the ideal tandem in net. The weaknesses of the LA Kings is their defense and goaltending. The Kings don't really have any elite defensemen, especially with Drew Doughty out, and can be downright terrible defensively. While both Jonathan Quick and Cal Peterson have been good, they are not good enough to carry the Kings in the Western Conference. The weaknesses of the Nashville Predators is that they are inconsistent offensively and their defensive depth. Although the Predators can score, the scoring is not always consistent, especially from their young players. Despite having a strong top four, their bottom pair is very weak, and that could be a problem if they make a deep playoff run. The weaknesses of the Dallas Stars is their inconsistent scoring and their goaltending. Although the Stars can score, the secondary scoring is not always there. Jake Ottinger has played well this season, but he is relatively unproven in the playoffs. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. The contenders in the Western Conference are the Colorado Avalanche, Minnesota Wild, and St. Louis Blues. The pretenders in the Western Conference are the Calgary Flames, Edmonton Oilers, LA Kings, Nashville Predators, and Dallas Stars. In my next podcast, I talk about players to pick up in fantasy hockey.